Welcome to the Common Ground podcast, where stories connect, perspectives collide, and purpose is found in the middle.
Every week, we sit down with unique and inspiring guests that come from all walks of life. People who challenge the status quo, overcome the odds, and live with intentionality.
Whether you're driving to work, on your morning walk, or just looking for that spark to ignite your week, you're in the right place.
Welcome to the Common Ground podcast with your hosts, John Fletcher and Sydney Kirk.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Common Ground podcast. Yes, that is true. It is me in the flesh. In the spirit, I am here 100% focused on you guys. That's right. Philly is in the building. Philly is in the barn.
The barn when you're from Philadelphia.
That's probably true.
No, the only one that's kicking it in the sticks is me.
So, as always, you know, she looks good doing child pose. She looks good doing warrior. She looks good doing downward dog. She looks good in yoga pants. That's right. The one, the only Sydney Nicole is in the barn.
No.
You're in the barn.
You're in the doghouse is where you're in. Oh boy. Thanks, Philly. How's it going?
Doing fantastic. I am so excited. I don't know if I told you, but my daughter called me this past weekend. And she called me, she's like, "Dad, I keep on asking everybody this question." And I was like, "Well, what's the question?" She's like, "What do you call a nose with no body?" I'm like, "Well, what is everybody telling you?" She goes, "Nobody knows."
Oh boy. All right. Dad jokes and in the doghouse.
Ooh. I told you I was excited. Why can't you give Elsa from Frozen a balloon at your party?
Why?
Because she'll let it go.
Okay, all right. That's a good one. I like that. I can appreciate the Disney jokes. I'm going to tell my that. I'm going to teach her that one.
As always, let us know in the comments which dad joke you preferred. Get me out of the doghouse. Give me words of encouragement for this episode, evidently.
Oh boy.
If I didn't have projectile aimed at me to start with, I have it now, evidently.
Oh.
All right, so let's get to the point and why we are here today. Today, we have a special guest with us. Kathryn Eipl is a holistic health practitioner, certified cognitive behavior therapy life coach, and substance use counselor based in California. After spending years working in the high-pressure entertainment industry, managing live events for companies like Universal Studios, Kathryn found herself battling burnout, emotional exhaustion, and addiction to alcohol and cannabis. Her personal healing journey through yoga, mindfulness, sound therapy, and deep inner work ultimately transformed the course of her life and inspired her to help others break free from self-sabotaging patterns, addiction, and limiting beliefs. Today, Kathryn is the creator of Neuro-Resonance Method, an innovative, wow, I am struggling today, an innovative approach that combines cognitive behavior coaching, sound therapy, energetic healing, and mindset work to help people reconnect with themselves on a mental, emotional, and energetic level. She also works in the mental health and addiction recovery space in Southern California, supporting individuals seeking lasting healing and transformation. Passionate about helping people understand the root causes behind destructive behaviors, Kathryn believes true healing happens when we stop numbing pain and start facing ourselves with honesty, compassion, and intention. Please welcome to the Common Ground podcast, Ms. Kathryn Eipl.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. It's quite the resume. This is going to be a good one. Psychology is right in my wheelhouse, and I love discussions and conversations along these lines or in this vein. But before we go into all of that good stuff. Who was Kathryn before your healing journey? I mean, we know that you worked in media and entertainment, but like where are you from? What did you do before?
So I'm initially from Chicago, Illinois, growing up in the city. So I, my home life, my family life wasn't the best. There was a lot of arguing in there. It was a space with addictions that were prevalent among one of my parents. There's also mental health issues as well. So it got to the point, I'm the youngest. Um, And it got to the point where I was the only kid really at home, and I didn't wanna be in that, you know, negative space of arguing. So I joined extracurricular activities at school to keep me out of the house longer, um, and I was in sports really just to get out of the house, and I'd built up this schedule and this routine that kept me out of the house until just about dinner time. Then I would go do homework, and then it would be time for another day. So I really, as a young adult, I just started to lean more into my passions, one of those being theater and entertainment. And that was a big extracurricular activity that I did when I was in high school. And I followed that into college. And initially, so I'm a double major with psychology and theater. So when I was applying, I was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna go for psychology," because I was already fascinated with how people's minds worked. Like looking at the different people in my family, where does that addiction fall into place? How does that change someone's thoughts? What is the wiring there? So I really wanted to learn more about that. And one of my friends at work, I used to work at a local Walgreens, when I was in my junior, senior year of high school, to save money for college, and one of them just, like, commented, and she's like, "I feel like you should major in theater because 'cause you're just so, like, animated and vibrant." I was like, "Well, I do like it, so okay." Um, and that's kind of what happened with that,
That is an
and
interesting combination though, because usually when people like, well, I guess yes and no. Like psychology is what you were really interested in, and then you added theater on just after the fact because somebody like made it a point about your personality.
yeah, and I was already doing theater in high school. I was mainly backstage, so stage management, uh, hair and makeup, costume design, really anything I could do backstage, building props, building the set. And
So it wasn't unfamiliar.
yeah, it was something I was already expressing interest in and did enjoy. And one of my top schools, I found out really late in the game they had a theater scholarship, and I was like, "Well, extra money towards school wouldn't hurt." So, I arranged to go down to the school, put together the paperwork that they wanted to see, and got got the theater scholarship as well. So, I was like, "Well, kinda seals the deal there."
Yeah, that I mean that makes so what did success mean to you in your I guess your 20s when you were going to school? What did it mean to you at that point in your life?
I am definitely at that time, I was very academic driven. I prided myself on getting good grades, studying, so success looked like academic achievement. It also was other achievements as well, because when I was in my mid-20s, I was finishing up grad school, and that's when I had landed the job at or a job at Universal Studios Hollywood for their theme park, and I just remember thinking when I crossed that stage, I was like, "Yes, I did it. I've made it. I've achieved my dream of graduating from a very prestigious art school in California, and I know that Monday I'm starting at one of the 6 major studios in in the industry.
Yeah, that is it's a huge achievement for sure. At this point in your career, educationally and starting into Universal, had this early onset of addiction already developed, or was it really while you were at Universal that that became something that you struggled with?
It was more when I was at Universal, because yes, you're in college, you drink, you s-
Sure.
you smoke, um, and, and it wasn't an issue because I also had periods of time where I wasn't doing any of that in school. And when I was working after I started to realize that this achievement that I worked so hard for and essentially anchored my whole life to that point around was no longer fulfilling to me, that's when I started leaning more into drinking because I didn't want to feel that. And I also didn't want to believe that that was actually true.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sure.
So did at that point, did it go from social drinking to you're saying you made the change from social drinking to, what I call, what is a good term for avoidance or, not dealing with life issue type of, drinking?
Yes, I definitely did indulge more in social drinking because I still had that belief of, oh, well, if I'm drinking socially with people after work, like it's not a problem. And it got to the point where I would do that almost every single day after work. Whereas before it would just be like max like 3 times. And then when I had that realization, I was like, sure, everybody's doing it. Everybody's feeling some level of exhausted, underappreciated, or annoyed with what the project we were working on or other areas in their job. And we would all vent about it at work. So at the time, it's easy to say, like, oh, that was healthy. But it started to become a frequent thing, a daily thing. And after I would get home, I'd be like, I want to drink more. Like, ooh, and come home, I'm like, "Oh, I have a bong here. I guess I'll just smoke weed now." So I just kept piling on even when I came home, and so that it was to avoid feeling that way because I was like, "Okay, well, I realized my life had become a routine. It
Mhm.
all revolved around this work that was unfulfilling to me." So to avoid feeling that and when you're first off, not many people really teach us how to handle those emotions in
Yeah.
general.
Yeah.
So when you're a young 20 something and you're realizing, "Oh, everything I worked for in my life is not actually what I want, what do I do?" So that's a really hard reality to face. And the Band-Aid for me was substances.
Mhm. Well, and I mean, success on paper without alignment of where we want to be in life eventually just becomes emotional debt that we,
Exactly.
pay to ourselves. And so like some people achieve everything that they've worked for on paper, your degrees, I mean, double degrees is a big deal, and they still feel empty inside because they're unfulfilled with what they're doing, especially in a job where you already feel like you're being taken advantage of. There's a difference between that fulfillment and alignment and just like doing what on paper you're supposed to be doing. Do
Exactly.
you, do you think that success can become its own addiction?
Absolutely. Really, anything can become an addiction. Food can become an addiction. And so if whatever gives you that dopamine high, and once you associate it as such as like, oh, well, when I do this thing, I feel great. So I'm going to keep doing this thing. And that's kind of also what I fell into with success in a way because, okay, I had graduated, I'd gotten that job. Uh, then I got like smaller projects at first, knocked them out of the park. Then I would get bigger projects. also, perform well on that.
Mhm.
And I would just keep going and keep going. And then all of a sudden, I was so run out because I had pushed my body. I pushed myself physically and mentally, was not taking care of myself, wasn't working out, wasn't really eating well because when you're working long hours at odd times, you just eat whatever you can get.
Oh, yeah.
So if that's fast food, um, that's what it is. And that
Mhm.
takes a physical toll on the body, which affects your cognitive ability and your emotional state because now you're so depleted that you don't have anything to give and everyone around you is going, "Catherine, what's wrong? You can work 12-hour shifts, no problem." And inside, I'm like, I'm dying. Someone
Yeah.
talks to me, I'm gonna hit you." Like,
Yeah. Yeah, no, you do, you just hit that level of, like, burnout, and it's like it's almost like society rewards burnout because it means that you're part of the hustle culture or whatever it is, but it's so depleting, when it's actually happening. Did
yeah.
you Go ahead.
Yes, I was just going to agree with your point about hustle culture because I think, especially in America, we pride ourselves on how much you have to hustle in order to make it and to prove. It's almost like you're proving to everyone around you, like, oh, that person's really great because they're handling three different jobs super well. And like, they don't even make it look like it's hard.
Yeah.
So,
No, I agree, and I mean, like you said, you can become addicted to success, and I think that even then, the same way that some people don't talk about the struggles that they're having, regardless of how they deem the severity, it is really apparent in the way that we respond at work and in our personal life. The fact that you didn't have time to do things like eat nutritious meals or work out is an indicator of being overworked. And I relate to that a lot because I had a job that was paying me an absurd amount of money for what I was doing, but it was killing me inside. And just like the hours that I worked and how often I was gone away from my kids, never had time for the gym because by the time you get done, it's 9 o'clock at night. You still didn't get to see your kids. You still
mhm.
haven't eaten. You get to wake up and do it again. And there's nothing fulfilling about it. I think I was addicted to like feeling important in my line of work because I was good at it. And I think that I suppressed things with drinking for a really long time too. Did you personally recognize addiction as addiction while it was happening, or was it once you were removed?
I did not recognize it when it was happening. I realized it as I was in my recovery. Ironic, like, as weird as that sounds. Um, because I did, as I mentioned earlier, I grew up with alcohol addiction being prevalent in my family. So I knew what it looked like at or one of the ways it can look, because it can look many different ways. And I was comparing myself to that because I'm like, "No, I don't have a problem. That's not
Mhm.
me. I'm not hiding my drinking. Uh, I'm not getting blackout drunk every time I drink." And it wasn't until I started I realized that something needed to give. So I did not like how agitated I had become in my relationships, friendships, work. And I had done yoga in grad school. It was when I was first introduced to it. So that helped me a lot when I was in school. And once I started working a lot, that was one of the first things that I sacrificed and let go of. So when I brought it back and started to get more serious about it, I realized I'm like, more of these emotions that I had been suppressing were coming up in the classes I was taking. And I realized then that I was using alcohol to suppress it. And that's when I was like, well, maybe I just need to let myself feel this and let go of alcohol. And I did. It was definitely a process. So I just started letting myself drink less. And that kind of At the beginning, I went more into smoking because I'm like, "Smoking's not my problem. I'm just gonna drink less." And then I realized I also had a big cannabis addiction as well.
I kind of want to, you said a couple things that really interest me. And I hadn't thought about it until you said it. And it sounds very normal. And when you talked about that you would get together with your friends and you would vent, I think that one of the light bulbs that went off on me while I heard you talking was that I think it's important who you surround yourself with, and I don't think that there's ever enough attention put on venting and
Mhm.
how negative that can be. I'm not saying it's good. Like, because the excuse is, "Oh, I just need to vent." But when you're in a group of people who are always venting, psychologically, I think it's rewiring your brain to be even more unhappy than where you presently are, because now you're not even feeding your own un unhappiness, you're feeding the unhappiness of everybody around you who's also venting. And we sit there and we think, "Oh, this is a great, we're just all venting after work." But there's a huge there's a huge problem, when that's what we're feeding ourselves. I think it's really important to, and that's why I said, like, who we surround ourselves with, because I think the more healthier people that would have been surrounding you at that point would have been like, "Well, if you're unhappy, do you think this is the job for you? What other things could you do?" Could give you better advice than to be like, "Yeah, this job sucks, so we just need to go out and drink all
Well,
weekend," and
yeah, but it's interesting because and this, like, goes into ties into the topic of psychology, so I'd be curious for, like, Catherine's opinion on this, but objectively, I think about the word venting the same way that I think about the word confrontation. I don't think that confrontation is inherently a bad word. I think that people turn it into a bad word when confrontation also attributes other negative character traits with it, such as aggression, derogatory behavior, addictive tendencies. Like there's a lot of things that when you add that to the word confrontation, now confrontation becomes something that's bad. Psychology says talk it out, and then society calls it venting. And I think that that difference is a really great line because it is a matter of are you doing something to change it or are you not? And that's what really makes it the difference of venting about it versus this concept of talking it out. And I'm not saying that you're saying that talking it out is a bad thing per se, but I'm just clarifying for our listeners and to bring up a point about like, what is that line, I guess? And the last thing that I would add to that is that human psychology dictates that people are more afraid of change than they are of staying in the same comfortable state of misery. People would rather wear like a big fur coat. It's made of dead things, but it keeps them warm. And that's like what a lot of people do in their life when they don't know how to make positive change, but they know that this is familiar. So even though maybe it's not a good thing, it's safer because I know the unfamiliarity.
if I can jump in before Catherine speaks on this, um, what I'm saying is I think that people actually have a positive thing of venting where I think it shouldn't be so positive. And I'm not saying that venting is negative. It's that the way we use venting is negative and we call it positive. We go, because if I'm just going around venting to everybody, I'm not really looking for answers. I'm not looking for somebody to give me good feedback. I'm just letting stuff off my chest, and I hear too many times, "Well, I just needed to vent. Who cares about you? Like, I needed it, so this makes me feel good to just get my feelings out." And it's good because I'm getting my feelings out. But you're not looking for any constructive feedback to those feelings. You're just, and you don't care what those feelings do to somebody else.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
in that aspect, I think what people are promoting as good is actually bad. I think the venting that you were talking about, like gluing and, you
Sure.
know, having somebody who sits back and says, "Dude, I hear you. I feel you. I can understand what you're going through in this situation. Have you thought about this?" Is the healthy venting, you know?
Yeah. No, I understood. That makes sense.
Yes. And I do agree with that point where venting can be positive. Oftentimes, the way that it is used, it is more negative, where there isn't that we're looking for misery, right? We're seeking misery.
Or
Yeah,
Right.
misery loves company. So when we vent, we're looking for the people that we're venting to also vent back. So we can go, it normalizes where we are in that point of like, oh, okay, I'm not the only one feeling this way about my job or um and this person's struggling in their relationship and I'm not. So okay, that's some a positive for me, right?
Mhm.
So it becomes this comparison of okay, well tell me how your life is falling short right now. And in my head, I'll kind of use it to be like, oh yeah, I can relate. Or hey, no, that thing's actually good for me. So it becomes a weird checklist in a way. There is, of course, a healthy way to use venting where you can just tell one of your friends, hey, I need to vent. I had a bad day. Set a timer for 5 minutes. Me and one of my friends used to do this when we had really bad days where we would hold space for each other and I would vent for 5 minutes. She would vent for 5 minutes. And then when we were done venting, it was like, okay, we would ask each other, do you want to explore solutions to these things? Like, or did you just want to vent? Uh, so I think it has ways that it can be used constructively to allow for growth. But the way in which I was using it with my friends when we were at, happy hour was definitely not in a positive way. It was that more negative venting of like, oh, well, this sucks. This isn't going well. Okay, you now tell me how your life is terrible. And you are who you surround yourself with.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
the main 5 people that you spend the most time with, those are also the thoughts and behaviors that you start to take on and adapt for yourself. So if you're surrounding yourself with people who are upset and angry, feeling negative about their life, that is what you are hardwiring yourself to believe about your life as well.
Yeah, birds of a feather certainly flock together. I talk about that a lot,
Mhm.
that you are the sum of the 5 most people that you hang around the most. What book is that from? Do you remember?
I do not remember
There's a
it.
it's a
positive.
common thing, but it's like yeah, there's like a place where it originates that I just can't think of off the
Mhm.
top of my head. So when you were getting out of Universal then, like, whatever that pivoting point was for you, how did that take you into the work that you do now? I mean, naturally, you had these 2 degrees, so it's I'm sure to a degree it was like, "Yeah, I've got this degree and I've got this degree, so we're gonna switch." But what did that transition look like for you?
That's actually one of the reasons why I have the 2 degrees because I was like, well, I know I'm always interested in psychology and there's so much that you can do with psychology and you can build a
Mhm.
lot off of a psych degree. So my way of thought is like I kind of had this backup plan already in my head where I'm like, well, if the theater and entertainment route doesn't work out for me, I always have psychology to fall back to. And
Makes sense. It is a good
one
one. It's very there's a lot that you it's versatile.
Mhm, exactly. And the more that I started doing yoga, the more I wanted to learn about it. The studio that I went to was a very small woman owned yoga studio, so completely not corporatized, which I loved. And they started offering their very first ever yoga teacher training. I was like, oh, I'm going to take it. Not thinking that I'm going to teach yoga. That was not my intent. I really just wanted to learn how to do the poses better for my body so that I didn't have to conform my life around their schedule
Mhm.
because I would work, graveyard shifts some night. And then I would also be working until like 6 p.m. And a lot of studios have their last class around that time. So I didn't want to have that be sacrificed depending on what project I was working on. And the more that I dove into the studies, because we also had a philosophical discussion every Friday on yoga, the more that I learned about it, the more that actually started embodying a lot of the different, I don't want to say laws, but they have yamas and niyamas in yoga, as you may know. And so when I actually started applying those to my life as a way of living, that's when it became something I couldn't ignore of, okay, the entertainment industry is no longer serving me. It does not fill me up. I'm not aligned with it. I have to do something else. So I was like, well, until I can figure out what that thing is, I'm still going to keep working in entertainment and explore other options. When we finished the yoga teacher training program, the teacher offered a lot of us to come and teach at the studio.
Mm.
So I started teaching at the studio, just one class a week, super early before I would go into work. And I noticed that I was way more fulfilled teaching that class than working an 8-hour a day or watching the event that I had worked for months on, watching thousands of people run into the park to go see it. As I remember that moment, it was my first Halloween Horror Nights, and we were standing on the roof. A lot of people, not a lot of people, but a couple other people from my school were also there because they had gotten a job to work on it. And I remember asking them, I'm like, how do you feel right now? Because I just kind of felt numb. I'm like, oh, this is cool. I took some videos, took some photos. I'm like, I want to remember this moment. And I was like, why do I feel empty? And that was a big solidifier where I was like, okay, this is huge. Like, I spent months on this project and I'm not feeling really anything on opening night. Okay. Uh,
Mm.
and I slowly made the transition into teaching more yoga. I had also gotten exposed to sound therapy when I was in the teacher training. So I was diving into that on my own. Got certified in Reiki, which was also something else that I was reintroduced to during that yoga training. And with my psych degree, I have always loved cognitive behavioral therapy psychology. It's one of my favorites. I decided to get a certification to become a life coach based around CBT. So I was doing all of that in tandem while still working in entertainment so that I could kind of stack it in a way where I would dovetail out of entertainment and into the health and wellness industry somewhat seamlessly.
That sounds stressful. It does. I have the same tendency. I really do. Like, it's like I do the same thing because I grew up in an environment where I was taught to run parallel tracks. In other words, don't get off of this train until you can safely step onto the loading dock and get on to the next train so that you don't lose
Right.
momentum, that you keep going kind of thing. At what point did you realize that the 2 couldn't coexist together? Or did you successfully have that sounds hectic because it sounds like Universal was requiring a lot of you emotionally and mentally. So did you switch to part-time with them, or how did you manage that?
Universal and I had a complicated relationship. Um, so initially I was hired, well, when I was in school, I was interning for them for a summer. and that was amazing. Um, then I had a very high stress job, similar to what you were saying, where, like, the pay was worth it, but the situation, like, I would be gone from my house for, you know, 14, 16 hours most days because I needed to stay late at the office. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm still in school. Why is this all hinging on me at this company? I, so when I was at that company, that's when I reached out to one of my contacts at Universal. And I'm like, please tell me you guys are hiring for Halloween Horror Nights. And secured that position. That was the one that was the most stressful, was working on that project. And once that was over, I got put on to different projects because the company wanted to keep me around because they enjoyed how I worked, and it felt like a good match at the time. So when I got put on another project, and that was when I started to really feel run down because that project was asking me to work normal hours, that normal, like, 9 to 5, 9 to 6, plus coming back when the park was closed and leading an install, and then doing checks right before park open. So I was pretty much needing to be there for, like, 18 to 20 hours. And I just looked at my boss, I'm like, "I need an assistant. Like, I can do this, I can manage it, but I cannot physically be here this
Yeah.
whole time.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just ridiculous. So either we pick somebody or we need to hire somebody new."
Mhm.
Uh, so I did have an assistant, and that was my saving grace there for that time.
Sure.
Um, and then I remember I really wanted to be salaried with them, so I'm like, "Oh, if I'm salaried with them, it'll problem solved." Because before I was working as a contractor, and that's when I learned salary is not for me, because they wanted even more of my time, and I'm like, "No, I'm not gonna do that. 100% not gonna do that." And that was when I was taking those classes, I was going through the teacher training. Because at that point, I was like, "Yeah, no, if this is what corporate life is, it's not for me, it's not what I want to be doing." And I still had the assistant during part of that time. And once the salary position was coming to an end, I had already established enough yoga classes and clients outside of it that I was like, "I can float for a little bit before I feel like I'm in trouble." And that's when I just catapulted myself into creating my own health and wellness practice.
So, um, when did how much of what you do is connected with, like, I guess, the addiction, um, part of is it more do you find that you do more yoga with your addiction clients, or is it more cognitive behavior?
It's more CBT work with them because a lot of addictions stem from, so they become, addictions are crazy.
Yeah,
And I feel like there's a false belief where it it's a choice. It starts as a choice, but then your body starts to become physiologically dependent on those
sure.
substances to regulate itself. So it becomes much more than a choice. It becomes something that your body needs, is now dependent on it. So it's not easy to quit. So when someone, that's like one of the worst things you can say to somebody who's in an active addiction is like, oh, well, just stop drinking, just stop using that substance. Okay, if it were that easy, they would have done it, because you can know something's not good for you and want to stop, but it becomes so hard because your body is used to it. It needs it. And as Sydney pointed out earlier, when you know how something is, even if it's uncomfortable, you'd rather sit in that thing because there is a level for you where it is comfortable because you know it. So you're like, I don't want this addiction, but I know what it is. I know what my life is with it. I don't know how it's going to be to let go of it. And I'm afraid to face that unknown. Uh, so a lot of that, you build up thoughts and beliefs around this addiction. So a lot of the work that I do with people who are coming out of their addictions and in recovery is reframing their beliefs, kind getting to the root of what led them to reach for that in the first place. What were they avoiding? What did they want to forget or stuff down and pretend didn't exist? And creating new thoughts that help them move away from the addiction. I also do a lot of energy work with them as well. What you don't process stays in your body. So your body's still carrying it, it's still living in your energy. So we want to clear that out at the same time that you're working on the cognitive level, so that we're not only just working on the mind, but we're wiping out uh, your energy system, getting getting rid of those, traumas, past situations.
When did you know that you wanted to, and I don't know if it's w your major focus, but that addiction recovery, helping people through addiction was something that you really wanted to make a part of your practice?
That's one of the things that it found me. So I had already started my wellness practice. I was doing coaching work, really focused more on self sabotaging thoughts and beliefs, not specific to addiction. And I was also doing a lot of relationship work as well. So, kind of clarifying how people thought about relationships and how to help them just have better communication in their relationships. So, that was my main focus. And I went to a festival, a random small festival in Arizona, and I was working the healing sanctuary offering sound healing. One of the women who came to my opening night sound healing, the first night of the festival, so happened to run a women's recovery center. She got my information from the manager of the healing sanctuary and called me after the festival and asked if I was curious in working with the addiction population, because she had this facility in Carlsbad. And at the time I was living in Oceanside, which the two are like 20, 30 minutes away. And I was like, yes, I am interested, because it was before I went to that festival, I had started realizing that alcohol really is a self sabotaging behavior. Any addiction is a little self sabotaging in some way. And I was like, well, what if I start working in this population? And it was because I got connected with um, Kay White, who's the owner of Villa Kalima, and she extended a position to me to try it to see if it how I felt about it. We did a trial period and I loved it. And from there, that's when I was like, okay, this is the population that I really do want to focus on. So that all happened in 21.
But that's a busy 2021.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, John?
Is there any preventative stuff that you work with for, like, addiction? Like, trying to teach people how to prevent even being addicted, getting themselves into bad situations, shall I say? Because you say it starts with a choice, right? So,
Was that
Mhm.
not even once what they teach the kids? Have you not heard that? He
no,
has. Oh, she has. I think
Yeah.
that's common in psychology, I guess. They've got bracelets that they give to kids in school when they do, like, it's usually middle school. They do, like, drug counseling. They come and say, "Hey, like, at some point, you're probably gonna be exposed to this. Don't even do it once," and they try to scare the ever living shit out of kids and, like,
Yeah.
so they don't do drugs. It's specifically about meth is what it is. It's specifically about, like, much harder drugs, but
Mhm.
addiction is addiction, like Kathryn pointed out, but the slogan is "not even once," and so they'll give these silicone bracelets out that say "not even once," and then it became like a whole meme where it's like anything is not even once that's like a hard pass kind of thing.
Mhm. Yeah, when I was growing up,
they did
we
not do that
had
when I was growing up.
No?
we had the DARE program where they even had, like,
Yeah.
local police officers come and talk about the horrific things that they had seen with drug busts to really
Oh, boy.
instill the fear so you don't even try it. Um, yes, so I do work with preventative, uh preventative tactics. Because you want to diagnose what that thought is. What is causing you to reach for whatever that chosen addiction is? And then from there, you're working backwards of, okay, well, where did that thought come from? Is it something that I actively chose to believe, or did someone else tell me that? Um, and is there evidence that supports it? A lot of times there's not evidence that supports it. So then let's find evidence that goes against it. And from that, we get a longer list and we'll create other thoughts and other exercises, things that they can do to really work through those emotions rather than numb it with with that chosen addiction. That it can be a lot because sometimes it can be simple and you can recognize when addictions are starting to set in when you start craving them. Other times it you don't recognize it until you're in it and all of your friends and family members are telling you that they're concerned, right?
No,
So it just depends on when in that process I see people and work with them.
that makes sense. I do think that it has to be treated differently, not just based on what the addiction is, like what it originated as, but the other underlying factors, like you pointed out. Do you think that we are too quick or not quick enough to diagnose addiction? And I say diagnose because it does become a neurological thing.
Um in some cases I yes to both of those questions. In some cases, I feel like it can be done right when it's needed. Like, okay, we're catching it like at a good point where we still are kind of ahead of it and can course correct easily. Then I also think that sometimes it gets misdiagnosed or people when you are addicted and you understand that you need more and more of the substance to get to the same place, you've built up your tolerance. And so you want to hide that. So you're not going to be truthful with people when they say, okay, how much do you use? You're not going to be honest. So
Yeah.
at those points, it then can become a while until the addiction is actually diagnosed as such, because it could be like, oh, they're depressed or they have anxiety. And a lot of times, addictions do have a co occurring disorder associated with them. There is a mental health component, and that can lead people to a substance because they know that there is some sort of imbalance or something feels off with just how they feel, how they think. And it's a form of trying to regulate themselves and normalize, because there is, unfortunately, still a stigma around mental health issues, even though they're very common and prevalent in our society.
Yeah, well, I agree. It is a matter of like when you catch it and all of those things. Do you treat different addictions different? Like one of the things that I've struggled with is the fact that people don't see an addiction counselor, or that it's not more commonly talked about the benefits of cognitive behavioral therapy and addiction specifically for things that are not recognized by society as an addiction. For example, success, workaholic, like even self-harm. I think that there's a degree of emotional coping that happens with those things. What do you say to cognitive behavioral therapy being discussed not enough in the context that it can benefit people maybe, or how it should be more widespread used just with people who are struggling in general?
Yeah, I really do think that that's actually shifting, because I have recently completed a substance use program to get my certification as a substance use counselor. And one of the things that they talk about the most is how helpful cognitive behavioral therapy is when you're working through an addiction, and how even when you're not working in an addiction, it's great to help shift your thoughts, because it is a way to reflect what you are currently thinking back to you. And you have the option to look at and go, okay, is this helpful? Okay, this is not helpful. How can we rewrite that? So I do believe that that is shifting, and I'm really happy that it's shifting, because it's good for so many different things. It can help with anxiety, it can help with depression. Doing CBT on myself really helped me manage my own social anxieties. And now it's not even an issue for me, because I've worked through it. And then if I fall back into it, I have those exercises that I can do on myself when I need to. So I always preach about it. And it's one of those things that as I talk about it more and my work more, s- more people are talking to me off to the side saying how CBT has changed their life.
It's a big statement. It's really true. I mean, it's what percentage of the time would you say that in the clients that you help walk through addiction also have a lot of underlying trauma, like things that happened prior to that addiction?
Um, Almost all of them.
Yeah, that's what I figured you would say.
Yeah.
At some point, healing requires us to stop introducing ourselves through our old wounds. And that's
Hmm.
what I think I want people to hear in this conversation is that if you're struggling with addiction or know somebody struggling with addiction, there's underlying hurt there.
Yeah,
Um, and your trauma might explain your behavior, but it doesn't excuse destroying yourself forever.
exactly. And even though it may have been something that was done to you and you now hold this trauma, it also is your responsibility to work through that because it has wounded you, and so you can either continue to let it bleed you out in a sense and take
Mm.
over, or you can choose to resume your life, take accountability, and push through that and not let it be the defining factor of who you are. Yes, it's a thing that happened to you, and how are you going to use that to become something new? It it is an opportunity to reinvent yourself, and I do really believe that. Because if we just sit in our traumas and our wounds, then we're asking for that, misery loves company pity party.
So what do you say to those who say, and I want to give you two, I guess, different things, that addiction doesn't exist, it's all in your head. Um, or B, what do you say to the people who, and I think you kind of maybe just answered it, but I still want to throw the question out there, is that use addiction as an excuse. Well, I'm just addicted to it. I can't change. I can't. It's an addiction. I feel like too many people claim addiction just so that they can do exactly the opposite of what you just said, which was avoid working on something. Because if I'm addicted to it, if it's something that is controlling me now it's no longer my responsibility.
Sure.
It's my addiction.
Yeah. Um, so to answer that one first, like you can. I believe you can change your addictions. Is it going to be easy? Not necessarily, no. You have to want to change it. That's the most important thing. I've seen so many people go through uh, treatment centers, whether they're residential or outpatient, and their reasoning for being there is, oh, it's court mandated, or, oh, my family's worried about it. And so they put me here, but I don't think I have a problem. So
Yeah.
with that thinking, that person is most likely going to relapse because they are telling themselves, it's not an issue. I'm fine. I have it managed. The desire and to change the addiction comes from that person. That person really has to want it, has to really see that it's an issue and accept, I don't have to live this way and I don't want to live this way. So until that happens, then there is no change because most likely they're just going to keep using it as that avoidance of, well, I just am this way. Like some people have addictions and I'm one of them and this is mine.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've heard some people say that you can't change until you've hit rock bottom because, um, and I know somebody will be like, oh, like there's a guy who says, oh, when people tell me they changed, the first question I ask them is, what's their rock bottom? And if they don't have their rock bottom, then I don't think they've changed because they haven't hit that lowest point. Like there's something once you hit rock bottom that, is like live life or death, type of a thing that you come to. Um, but my question to you is if you could go back to any point in your life, um, and especially I would say during some point in that universal or even your college education, what part would you go back to and what would you say to yourself, you know?
Would go back to that time when I was at Universal where I had just started struggling with the fact that of accepting that that career was no longer in alignment for who I was. I would tell myself that it's okay to walk away, that I don't need to try to force it. I don't need to try to chase. more and more success because that was the thing. I was like, well, okay, maybe that project wasn't enough. Maybe I need more. Okay, maybe I really need to feel like I'm a part of the company. Let's seek salary. Okay, now I'm a part of the like official team. And all of those things, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, no, this isn't for me. Nope, this still isn't for me." But I still kept chasing those different milestones, and I would go back to, m me in my mid to late 20s at that time and tell myself, "It's okay." Like, it's not a failure to walk away. It if anything, it's more of a victory to know who you are and to know that you can choose differently.
Love it. Good stuff.
So that's going to bring us to our final two segments, and the first one is key takeaways.
Key takeaways.
And there's two takeaways that I'm going to really take away from this conversation. And the one, I guess, is just my viewpoint after listening to the conversation. And we really didn't talk about this, but I'm going to relate it to it. I truly believe that, and I think you kind of talked about it with the whole universal thing, but that when you're not living out your God fulfilled purpose, that's going to lead you searching for other stuff, and which a lot of times leads you into addictions
Mhm,
because it's a lack of purpose, it's a lack of fulfillment. Because if you're fulfilled, if you're really living out your purpose, you're not looking for something to take replace that. And I feel that, and that's even with like social drinking, it could be anything. Like if I'm extremely happy, why do I want to go out? Like, okay, if even if I'm out with friends, it's like, okay, I might have a drink here, maybe there, but I'm not looking to drink because I have what's important to me. Like I know what I'm all about. I find that those things that we get addicted to are trying to give us some kind of purpose
mhm,
in essence. Um, so the lack of purpose leads to addiction. So, for me, it comes back to my faith. It comes back to everything that I believe in. And if I'm not living I know that my most fulfilled times in my life is when I've been living my God fulfilled purpose.
mhm,
And um, I felt that emptiness. I felt the depression. I felt everything else when I'm not. Um, So that's the first thing I take out of it. The second thing is that really smart people, and I'm not talking IQ smart, but really smart people surround themselves with smart people.
mhm.
People who aren't just going to be yes men or, oh yeah, you're feeling this way, I feel this way. Like they're not going to encourage your bad behaviors, and they're not going to encourage you to keep on doing what you're doing. Really smart people surround themselves with people who are going to challenge them and make them question and um and make them think. And so um and they don't have to be super smart people. They just have to be people who generally just say look at different things from different points of view. If this isn't working for you, try A, B, C, D, And I don't you don't need a master's degree, you don't need a pedigree for it. You just need to be somebody who is not just going to let somebody walk down the path and continue in a destructive behavior without saying something.
Right.
So, they're my two key takeaways from, this episode. How about you, Sydney?
I think that my biggest thing is definitely point number one. It doesn't matter if you have the piece of paper, if you don't feel fulfilled in what you're doing. This is funny because I'm gonna read this. I'm irritated by this, but it's relevant for the purpose of this conversation. So, I found a journal that my dad started for me when I was a kid, and I don't even like my dad right now. Him and I haven't talked in 6 months, and it's ironic to me because of the way that I grew up, but he writes me this note in here and says that money is not the most important thing. It says, um, I also took the time, there's like, I'm not going to read the whole thing. It says, I also took the time to tell you that money, and then in parentheses, it says, which is what I needed to buy the store, and parenthesis, is not most important, even though most people think it is what will make them happy. So I asked you, my precious daughter, what is it that makes you happy? Your answer, Sydney, is/was the biggest key to true happiness in this life. And I hope and pray that you will never forget that. And so it kind of pinballs off what John said, who is now my dad for all intents and purposes, the only dad that I have anymore. But that it's not just about money, it is about that fulfillment piece. And
Mhm.
I've learned in life that you can pour from an empty cup. Ironically, like society says you can't pour from an empty cup. I think that when you're drawing from a well that isn't yours, that you can still pour into your life, but you have to have the intellectual and emotional knowledge of where you're at in order to be able to do that. Because if you're not drawing from that well, then your cup will run empty. So it's not just the idea that you can pour from an empty cup. It's like you can pour from an empty cup as long as you're tapped into the well. And
Yeah.
there was another analogy that a psychology professor gave, and I don't remember his name, but he pulls out like this big vase, like really large, and then he fills it up at first with a ton of little things, like all the way up to the top. And then he goes in with these big things and says, no, I can only fit a couple of these, like one. And then he tries to put them on and the big ones start falling off. Then he empties it and he redoes it and he puts the big things in first and then a couple of medium-sized things and then the small things, and a ton more fit in to the vase because of how he organized it. And then he goes back and he explains the five large items in here are the five things that are the core of who I am as a person, and he lists them and he goes faith, family, work, or like in whatever they were. And then he says, and now I have room for 15 of these smaller things that I can fit in here. I enjoy fishing. I enjoy, blah, blah, blah. The point of that being that when we balance our life around the things that way, that we have more space, but that requires healing. And um, like purpose can emerge from pain. And I think that people avoid that because of that concept of just the idea that people don't like anything that's uncomfortable. They don't like change. We talked about that at the beginning of this, but addiction is often rooted in emotional pain and avoidance. And
Yes.
you have to first be able to approach that in yourself. Healing in general requires discomfort a lot of the times. Not all the time, but a lot of the times. I'm going to say that healing requires discomfort. So in order to get your life to the point where instead of we've got all these small things and now we don't have room for the important things, you first have to empty the vase. And that's tough to do.
I've seen that and I like that.
You've seen that video?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that video. Have you seen that one, Kathryn?
I haven't seen it.
I'll send it to you. I'll find it and I'll send it to you.
As a professor, right?
Yeah,
In
it
like a
is.
class. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was like sociology or something like that. But anyways, Kathryn, if you had one gold nugget of wisdom that you wanted our listeners to walk away with from today's episode, what would you want them to know?
Change is okay. And it's okay to face that pain and that hurt so that you can allow yourself to release it. Like if you really want to let go of that pain, the only way to do that is to feel it and to release it.
Man, that's a bitch, ain't it?
Mhm. Yeah,
Uh,
man. Well, and that's the thing. I feel like so many people think that when they start healing, oh, my life is going to get infinitely better right away. I'm going to release all these things, all the negative things. It is almost as though you are rediscovering them and feeling them again when you start the healing process because there's a level that you didn't allow yourself to explore it to. So it's just knowing and preparing yourself that it's going to be a journey. It's gonna be uncomfortable, but once you make it through to the other side, you will be able to have days where you're like, wow, I can't even believe that I let this thing control me for so long or hold so much weight in my life because I don't even identify with that. I can look at it and go, yes, that happened to me.
Mhm. Mhm.
And look what I've done with it, you know?
I love it. Love it.
Awesome, awesome. And this is where we ask you to give us your key takeaway, the audience. Give us your key takeaway from this. What did you take from it? What do you have any stories to share about it? Please comment below and let us know what you're thinking. And while you're commenting below, make sure you hit that subscribe, like, and follow button. We're closing in on 1,000. Hopefully, by the time this video is being shown, we've hit 1,000. But if not, make sure you're uh, subscribing to us. And also, if we can ask you if you could, so the subscriptions really matter on YouTube. So make sure you're subscribing on YouTube. If you can give us a 5-star review on Apple, we'd really appreciate it. And if you enjoy this program, go to Google Reviews and leave us a review. It all helps with what we're trying to accomplish here, the community we're trying to build. We have a ton of things that we want to do, but it takes your help in getting that done. So we appreciate you. We thank you. And that's going to take us to our final segment, the final five.
Final five.
Catherine, who was your hero and or who is or was your hero and why?
Um, Growing up, when I was even working in entertainment, it was my sister and still is to an extent. Um, s- because we both grew up in similar households and she did not let that affect her. She moved to the east, pursued a medical degree, became a psychiatrist, and that was always something that I, would look at and be like, you know what? If she can do it, I can do it too.
I like it.
Um, so my sister's my hero.
There you go. Second question for you. I may change this if there's no significance, but you have in your title founder of Eipl Healing, and the way that you have it makes it look like your last name has like the initials that or the letters in your last name stand for something. So what does that stand for if it has any meaning?
It does have meaning.
Okay.
It stands for every individual person is love. And that was something that a mantra that I had created in the very beginning of my healing journey because I had this story built up in my head that I was the victim, that everybody was out to get me. It didn't matter where they were. Like at work, I viewed myself as the victim, and people just, hated me for this random story that I created in my head. None of it was true, as I came to find out. And that's when I realized we are all individuals and we're just seeking to find love, whether that is love from a partner, self love for ourselves, and accepting who we are. We're all looking for the same thing. And we're just creating different storylines. But really, I don't know anything about either of your backgrounds. So if I were to come up and like create this story about what both of your lives are, like I'm sure it would be very incorrect. So it was a reminder for me to release that judgment, to release that false belief I had uh, by just reminding myself every individual person is loved. We are all just trying to heal. We're all looking for the same things. Like That's
I think we also
what healing stands for.
I think we also see ourselves incorrectly though too. So I think we have a vision of ourselves that isn't true of who we truly are. But I like it. I like that. Um, what either song, verse, quote, yoga pose, whatever, you know, thing is what is your go-to, is your life motto, is something that, calms you down?
Uh, One of my favorite songs is Little Beacon by Ayla Nero. And that is a song that I heard when I was immersing myself back into yoga. And she talks about overcoming these boulders that you experience in your life of it's not it's not a permanent roadblock, it's just a little boulder in your way and you get to climb over it or move around it. So that became the song that I would play when I was having a hard time or when I was, really contemplating getting back into my drinking or overindulging in cannabis. So I just remember having that song on repeat so many different times and crying, being like, yes, this is an anthem of truth and change. I can do this.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it
Yep.
became a song of empowerment.
I'll have to look it up. Next question for you is, what is one of your favorite practices from cognitive behavioral therapy that people could use in their everyday life if they just need a moment?
Mhm. It's the evidence question. So in cognitive behavioral therapy, there's a whole automatic negative thoughts tracker step that you can do. The quickest one, like what it really boils down to, is getting you to look at the evidence of your belief. If your belief is, say, after a breakup, you don't feel very attractive. So you focus on, like, you're trying on clothes with a friend and you put something on and your friend's like, really, you're going to wear that? And it's not saying you look bad. It's just saying that thing, really? Why? Uh, but then you fixate on it and you build it up in your story of like, oh, this isn't, I don't look good. Okay. I'm not going to go out to parties either. And so looking at that belief of, okay, I believe I'm not attractive. What is the evidence of that? Like, there isn't evidence other than it's existing in your own world. So, what is evidence that supports the opposite of that? Maybe somebody told you that you look really good or you have a stellar outfit on. Or people are saying, hey, you don't go out as much anymore and we miss you and we want you to hang out. Right. So that's a easy way when you're just having a time to be like, wait, let me stop myself. What is the actual evidence that supports this belief? I'm having a really hard time finding that evidence. Okay, what is the evidence against that thought?
I like that. That's a good one.
And the final question is, if you could have a cup of coffee and a conversation with somebody living or dead, who would it be and why?
It's Jim Carrey. Um, I know it's random, but I feel like he has so many different thoughts and he also did have a really big battle with addiction and mental health as well early on in his when his career was taking off like around the mask era. Um so I'd really want to pick his brain on how that affected him, how he worked through it. And he's also shifted now where he's a little bit more spiritual. So I really just have questions for him on that side of where he stands now.
Good stuff. Awesome. Well, Kathryn, if people want to follow your journey, connect with you, reach out to you about the work that you do, where can they go? Where can they find you?
So you can check my website. That's Eipl Healing, EIPL healing.com. You can also find me on Instagram under Eipl Healing as well. I'm on TikTok with that same handle, EIPL Healing. And yeah,
We will link that in the comments below too, so people can easily find you.
perfect. Thank you.
Also, in the link below will be a link to a free the tracker that you were just talking about, I believe, in your answer, correct?
Yes. So I've created a thought tracker journal so that you can use in your everyday life. It'll help you assess what your current thoughts are now and also give you a section to write down what your goals are. Like, what do you want to be thinking about? Right. And then it goes through the steps of how to change those thought patterns to create new ones.
Well, thank you for offering that to our audience, and be sure our audience to take a full advantage of that. Um, Thank you again for being with us today. And as always, when we take the opportunity to hear somebody's story, it gives us the opportunity to find common ground. Thank you, Kathryn, for being our guest today. For Sydney and myself, it is our pleasure being your host, and you have been listening to the Common Ground podcast. God bless and good night.
And that's it for today's episode of the Common Ground podcast. We hope you're leaving with a little more perspective, a little more purpose, and a whole lot more inspiration.
So thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it. Thank you to our special guest.
If today's conversation moved you, encouraged you, or challenged you in any way, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, rate it, leave us a review. Your support helps us reach more people who need to find their own common ground.
So for John Fletcher and Sydney Curtin,
we'll see you right here next week, same time, same place on the Common Ground podcast.
Please take a moment to listen to this disclosure from the Common Ground podcast. The Common Ground podcast is dedicated to exploring commonality among individuals with diverse perspectives. Our guests may present unique worldviews related to health, psychology, and overall well-being. Please note that the Common Ground podcast does not directly promote or endorse any specific ideas, concepts, or actions discussed during our episodes. Listeners are encouraged to approach the information shared with discernment and to consult with their mental and/or physical health providers before making any changes to their health or wellness practices. The views expressed by guests and hosts are their own and do not directly reflect the opinions of the Common Ground podcast. Your well-being is important, and we advocate for informed decision-making. Thanks for listening.